What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Free Think Dojo. And for today's video, it's going to be a little different from some of my previous videos that I put out recently. Just wanted to kind of take a little bit more of a relaxed approach to the conversation. Usually, my videos are pretty heavily scripted and edited in terms of audio, but today I just wanted to kind of chill and talk. Recently, I've been thinking a lot about my school years, and it actually pairs very nicely with the Bully gameplay I have for you guys today, because Bully was a very nostalgic game for me back in the day and is one of my favorite Rockstar games aside from Grand Theft Auto. But every time I play it, it reminds me of my adolescent years and my years in school and the experiences that I had that shaped me to who I am today. So, while you guys watch the Bully gameplay, I just wanted to talk a little bit about my school years, kind of my experiences, what I liked and didn't like, and just what I miss about it. So, I'd love to hear anybody else's experiences and their nostalgia for their school years in the comments. We'll love to reminisce together on this topic because I know everybody's gone through it at some point. So, without further ado, feel free to subscribe to the channel to join the dojo today. Like the video, comment down below, and let's get started. To be honest with you guys, I do have a love-hate relationship with my school years. I did make a lot of mistakes as a boy and like a growing teenager, with girls, with friends, with just life in general. But I also kind of neglected my education at times. However, I also did have really good experiences. I look back these days on those experiences and I just feel good. I feel happy. It brings me a lot of joy. And there's a lot of people that I met back then that are still really good friends today that are super close. And even if we don't live in the same city or the same town, we always know where we are. We always know what we're up to. And I feel like that's something that is very uncommon these days. So I try not to have a lot of regrets when it comes to those years. And if you haven't seen my previous video about making regrets and how those can affect you, definitely watch that because that is a good correlation to this video as well. Because regrets in your school years, that can follow some people for the rest of their lives, which is never a good thing. So I've definitely had my fair share of good and bad experiences. And when I think back on those years, all of those experiences kind of come flooding back in, whether I really want them to or not. At this point, I've been out of school since 2019. That's when I graduated college and kind of my last experience with the education system. But ever since then, I've just been full adulting, getting engaged, getting a job, trying to build my career. And at this point, I feel like I'm starting to miss things that I thought I never would miss. Just the other day, I found myself missing homework and like studying for tests, which I hated that stuff. I hated doing homework coming home from school, and I hated studying for tests because they gave me a lot of anxiety, and I still have a lot of test anxiety, which is why I never went farther in school past my bachelor's. But at the same time, I never thought that was something that I would feel nostalgia for. But when I started thinking about it, even though I just wanted to come home and play games after school and hated that stuff back then, I felt like studying for tests and doing homework kind of always guaranteed a certain outcome. Like if I studied really hard for a test and I was a good test taker, then it would almost be guaranteed that I would at least get like a B, maybe an A on a test and pass the class. Like I felt like it was so much more straightforward back then, and even if you weren't the perfect student, you could still get by. And that kind of resonates with me today because in my career, obviously, I've been in sales if you see my previous videos, and I find it a little less likely that if you do something, it will automatically lead to a certain outcome. It's kind of like with the American dream today and like getting promotions at jobs and whatnot. A lot of people say that if you just put in like a lot of work, then you'll get a good outcome, which obviously is not true. So it just was so much more simple back then. Like if I did my homework, I would get a good grade. Like at the same time, it was so, easy to mess up too. Like if you didn't do your homework, you were obviously not going to get a good grade. So you kind of see what I'm pointing at there, where if you did this, then you would get that outcome. If you did this, you would get this outcome. It was just so much more simple, which these days, I just don't think is very common. But something that really hits me hard, and I think hits everybody hard as you get older, is the social aspect of school. The social aspect also had certain outcomes. Like if you spend a lot of time with somebody because you guys were always around, then you would end up being either decent friends, really good friends, lifelong friends, or you would just be able to socialize with people on the regular, which is never a bad thing. But these days, especially when you get older and you like move away and you work remote, or you're shy and introverted like me, like you don't have the options to socialize whenever you want. Like you actually have to plan to socialize, and people that you've talked to in the past maybe aren't around anymore or harder to get with because they have their own lives. And I just kind of miss being around a group of people to where you could, socialize with people from different backgrounds. Which these days, even working in sales, I talk to a lot of people, but I don't have a lot of options to like create relationships, if that makes sense. Like even if I'm talking on the phone with somebody and like creating a business relationship, I feel like it's so much more difficult as you get older to create like multiple relationships that you could in school. I was a mixture of a band kid and a sports guy in school. So like I had the ability to talk with people from different demographics in general, but also just different experiences. I was labeled a nerd in school because I was in band, but then I would hop over in the spring and do sports, and all of a sudden I'm an athlete. And you kind of get to see different demographics of people in those different groups, I guess. And these days I just have a couple of friends from school that I talk to every now and again. And because I work remote and I don't live near any of my coworkers, and work friends are different than actual friends, which I do truly believe in that. I don't know about anybody else, but I feel like it's a little bit more difficult these days to, have relationships that are meaningful. And when you were in school, you were just always around people, so it was easier. So I kind of miss that aspect as well. Times are obviously way simpler when you're kids and you're growing up and you have parents taking care of you and you're not paying bills and all that stuff. And I totally get that. And at the same time, I just feel like life in general and society in general gets so much experience when they go through school and they're growing up. By the time that they get out of school and they start adulting, I feel like it's almost a shock because they're like, oh my God, it's nothing like school. What I learned in school does not apply to what I do. And while the education system obviously has its ups and downs and people have their opinions on it, I feel like the stuff we learn in classes is good to know, but the biggest things and the biggest lessons we learn happen outside of the classroom. I did date around a bit. I was with different girls and, had different relationships and experiences in that realm. But I feel like a lot of those relationships, not only, romantic, dating girls or whatever, but also just friendships back in those school days that taught me a lot of lessons that have helped me kind of develop who I want to be today. And, I made a lot of mistakes with girls. I wasn't the most supportive boyfriend or, just the best boyfriend in general. But I feel like even through the mistakes I made in those school relationships, it kind of helped me develop the partner I want to be today for my fiance. I feel like it helped me be more supportive. It helped me be more understanding by making those mistakes early on in life. And, school was a time where you could make those mistakes. That's the time where you were supposed to date around or have different types of friends and either, have a good relationship or a bad relationship, because both of those will teach you good lessons for life. But I feel like if I didn't, date around or have a lot of different friend groups and friends, it wouldn't have helped me, develop socially to how I am today. As you can tell, I reminisce a lot about my mistakes and the lessons I learned and kind of how those experiences shaped me to who I am in my adult version. But I feel like sometimes I neglect the good experiences that I had. And when I reminisce, I often forget to remember those times. And sometimes it's good to take a step back and just remember the nights where you're playing, till 12 a.m. with your friends or 4 a.m. playing Halo with some of my best buddies that I'm still friends with today. Those times are the things that I often don't think about, and I feel like I should think about more. Even though I am still close with those friends, they have their own lives now. And we can't stay up till 4 a.m. playing Halo anymore. And it's a little bittersweet, thinking that, because we'll never be able to stay up till 4 a.m. again playing Halo. But at least I had those experiences, and it did build our relationship to kind of an unbreakable bond these days that even if we do live far away or have different life, experiences going on at the same time, we always know that we'll be there for each other. And I think that's super important. Whether it was late night gaming sessions for you or having sleepovers over the summer with your friends, whatever it may have been, those good experiences and sometimes those connections that we still bring into today are super important to cherish. we really need to be appreciative for those times because a lot of people, including myself, will look back on bad experiences in school, like bad relationships that you had, or maybe you were bullied like I was, and think back of if I wasn't bullied, would I've turned out different today? Or maybe you struggled in class and you didn't take education very seriously, and now you look back and say, if I would have taken class seriously, maybe I would have got a better job or been in a different place. All of those things that we struggle with as we get older, I think kind of burden us a lot. I think it's something that we obviously do regret. It's something that if we let it can kind of take over our mindset as we get older. But if you take a step back and remember that school life wasn't always that bad, you had good experiences, you have connections that maybe still live on today. It kind of creates a little bit more of a balance point. It gets us a little bit more appreciative, but it also gives us a chance to step back and remember that we're doing just fine. While our school days may be past us, maybe for some people it's been pretty recent, I feel like it's good to kind of share experiences on school life and, relate to things that you might have gone through. So, would love to hear anybody in the comments on their experiences or opinions on their school years. Obviously, for me, it's pretty nostalgic, but definitely have those good and bad things that I always think about. So, would love to see if anybody relates. Once again, I appreciate everybody taking some time in the Free Think Dojo with me today. Once again, subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment down below anything you would like to comment, and I will talk to you guys later.